So I'm just going to do a quick walkthrough on how to set up and install and get running with this logger for your Azure OpenAI instance. So basically, I just have the repo cloned here, and I'm just going to create a brand new resource group so we can start from scratch. Just copy and paste this command, logger test3, let's say. Should do it right away. And then copy and paste the command to deploy the script. And you're going to want to be in the root of the repo, basically where main.bicep is. Just make sure you select the right resource group, presumably the one that you just created. And then you only have to provide two parameters. So that's going to be your original Azure OpenAI endpoint. I'm just going to replace them with mine, which you don't need to see. And your original API key for the OpenAI instance. We're no longer going to be using that. And then it's just going to start running. It should probably take like a minute or so to deploy everything, especially if it's in a brand new resource group. Now, bicep templates are idempotent, meaning that you can keep running the bicep script in the same resource group and it'll only change what it needs to change. So if you went in there after deployment and you messed around with your APIM settings, or you messed around with your workbook and you basically broke all the visualizations, it's totally fine. Just like hit up arrow and enter again in your terminal, run the script, and it'll just sort of overwrite everything to get back to the state it's supposed to be in. So that's really nice. So basically, in other words, anytime there's an update to the main branch in this repo, like a new release comes out, you would essentially just rerun that deployment script with the same endpoint, the same API key you have to keep providing. All right, so the deployment's done. It took about 4 minutes or so on a fresh resource group. And when it's done, you basically will just see a dump of JSON. You don't need to do anything with that. So you'll get over to the Azure portal. You'll see your new resource group. And if you were to refresh, you've got 5 or so services that are created. The important ones are going to be the workbook. We can open that up. And this is your APIM instance, your API management instance. And this is where we're going to go to get our new endpoint. So essentially, and I have an example here that we can use, some example code. We're going to be swapping out our base endpoint with this. And to get our new API key, you're going to go to subscriptions. You'll see this OpenAI subscription created. Show hide keys, copy that key, add it to your, however you pass in your API key, probably through environment variable. So I'll just add that in. And that's it. So if we run this example file, so we get a response. I mean, you can't really tell what it is because it's responding in emojis, but that's probably 2 emojis. But what we can do now is go back to our newly created workbook, click open workbook, and within a minute or so, you should see the log of that request that we sent through. Now it'll take about a minute or two for every new request to show up in here. That's because Azure App Insights, for every log it gets, first of all, they do the batching in the background. Second of all, they do the indexing before it's available to you. So there's about a minute or two of batching and indexing time before you get to visualize any of the logs. And there it is. So we see our first request come in, cost us basically nothing. And if you were to look at the request table, you can click on that row and see all the metadata associated with it, as well as sort of a more readable version of what we just sent. So similarly, you can set this up in your LangChain implementation. It just takes a little bit more code. So we'll hide the embedding example. Same idea, copy over your endpoint and your API key. Set your deployment name. In my case, it's chat. Let's run this. Four. So in a minute, we should see the log show up for this LangChain request. All right, so we've got our LangChain request went through. So you see two requests, and again, similarly, same idea. We had no system instructions passed. We only had a human message with what is 2 plus 2, answer in one word, and of course the answer is 4. So that's pretty much it. You just drop in your new endpoint, pass in your new API key, which you find from your API management service subscriptions view, and you're good to go.